Hello students. In the previous class, I discussed A.G. Gardner's on the rule of the road, and so far we just completed the introduction to the author, introduction to the lesson, and similarly I could also complete the first paragraph which is provided in the textbook. Now I would like to proceed further, but I believe that all of you have understood the actual thematic concern of this lesson. As we live our life and we have several ethics, values, rules, regulations, law, and so on that we are supposed to follow while living our civil life. The author named A.G. Gardiner is actually talking about the expected demeanor, behavior, mannerism, liberty, freedom, exercise of freedom and liberty in life. And he is trying to touch upon different aspects of our life. If you go through the text, you will find that A.G. Gardiner is providing several examples in this respect in order to make you understand the necessity of being well-mannered, necessity of being civilized, and the necessity of following the law and order in life. The last point that we discussed was individual liberty would have become social anarchy. Actually, we cannot really exercise the freedom and liberty as given by the state, as given by the nation, as given by the country, as given by the constitution of the respective country, however we want. In fact, we are bound to follow some of the duties in life. Unless we protect the liberty and freedom of others, we will not be able to exercise our own freedom. The individual liberty and its exercise, depending on our will and wish, it will definitely lead to a social anarchy. The country or the state will become a place where you have no control at all. Hence, A.G. Gardiner says there is a danger of the world getting liberty drunk in these days, like the old lady with the basket. And it is just as well to remind ourselves of what the rule of the road means. In the previous class, we talked about an old lady who started walking in the middle of the road by proclaiming that now we got liberty, we got freedom. So it is my will and wish whether to walk from the pavements or from the middle of the road. If at all, everybody starts doing so, of course, there won't be any control as such. And that's why A.G. Gardiner says there is a danger of the world getting liberty drunk, as the lady carrying a basket doing the same in the middle of the road. It means that in order that the liberties of all may be preserved, the liberties of everybody must be curtailed. So if you really want to exercise your own freedom, if you really want to exercise your own liberty, mind it well, you can do it when you try to protect the liberties of others. And in order to provide equal liberty to everybody, unless everybody's liberty is going to be curtailed, the liberty for all cannot be established. When the policeman say at Piccadilly Circus steps into the middle of the road and puts up his hand, he is the symbol not of tyranny, but of liberty. See, when we are there in the middle of a square, the author has given the example of Piccadilly Circus from UK. And when you find a policeman standing right in the middle of the road, giving directions to the people coming from different directions, the policeman who is standing in the middle of the road is not the symbol of tyranny. On the contrary, he is the symbol of liberty. When he allows a particular lane to pass on, at the same time, he is of course prohibiting others to stop. Unless you stop, others may not pass through the square. So here, the role of the policeman or the traffic police there in the middle of the square is very crucial. You cannot say that I am living in a free land, I am living in a free country, and I want to do however, whenever I want. No, you cannot. If you want to pass through the Piccadilly Circus, you have to follow the instructions of the policeman standing in the middle of the square. He is not the symbol for tyranny, but moreover, he is there to protect the liberty of all and allows everybody to pass smoothly through the square. You may not think so. You may, being in a hurry and seeing your motor car pulled up by this insolence of office, feel that your liberty has been outraged. How dare this fellow interfere with your free use of the public highways? Now just imagine you are in a hurry. You may be, really very busy, and it is the desperate need from your end to pass through the square very quickly. And you happen to break the signal. Of course, you will find that the majesty of law, that is the traffic police, will be standing right in front of you, and he will remind you that you are breaking the rule of the road. In fact, you cannot say that he is coming in between the exercise of your liberty. He has his own role to be played as a majesty of law. And of course, the constitution of the country or the law of the country has given him the authority to maintain the law and order. So you cannot really challenge him. You may be thinking from your end, how dare this fellow interfere with your free use of the public highways? Okay, you have the right to pass through the highways. But you have to pass through the highways by following the rule of the road. You have to abide to the law of the country, the regulations of the road, and then only you can do it. Then, if you are a reasonable person, you will reflect that if he did not incidentally interfere with you, he would interfere with no one. As the result would be that Piccadilly Circus would be a maelstrom that you would never pass, or you would never cross at all. See the point here. The author says, if at all you are being disturbed by the policeman, if at all you are being stopped by the policeman, he will stop you only when you don't abide the rule. He will stop you only when you jump the signal. And if at all you are questioned for that, of course, he will do the same in the respect of other people as well. And suppose everybody starts doing like you, jumping the signals, definitely no one can really pass through the Piccadilly Circus, because the square will be in the anarchic state. Hundreds of vehicles will come from all the directions, and nobody would be able to cross it at all. You have submitted to the curtailment of private liberty in order that you may enjoy a social order, which makes your liberty a reality. In this respect, you need to remember one thing, that if at all you really want to exercise your liberty, your freedom, first of all, you need to remember that you should equally respect and protect the freedom and liberty of others. And then only a kind of social order will be created in the society, and everybody will be able to exercise freedom and liberty in life. No doubt, the Constitution has offered you certain rights, but at the same time, the same Constitution has also imposed certain obligations upon you that can be called a curtailment of private liberty, in order that you may enjoy a social order, and which makes your liberty a reality. Then in the subsequent paragraph, A.G. Gardiner talks about liberty. According to him, liberty is not a personal affair only, but a social contract. So you may claim all the time that yes, I am living in a free land. Of course, you are, no doubt. You may be there in UK, USA, India, or any other free country which is ruled by the people of the respective country. You can claim so that you have a full liberty. No doubt you have, and you will have even in future. But mind it well, liberty is not a personal affair only, but a social contract. Unless you protect the liberty of others, you will not be able to exercise your own liberty. So that way it is a social contract, because you cannot isolate yourself from the society. As you know, somewhere Aristotle once said, a man cannot live alone, because basically man is a social animal. If at all he lives alone, he is either a god or a demon. It indicates that man loves to live in a society. He cannot live alone, all isolated somewhere there in a jungle. Not at all. We love to have the company of men and women around. And once you think of a community around you, once you think of a society around you, it means you are obliged to follow the regulations of the community and society. And that way you have a social contract with the people. It is an accommodation of interests in matters which do not touch anybody else's liberty. Of course, I may be as free as I like. If I choose to go down the strand in a dressing gown with long hair and bare feet, who shall say me nay? See, an interesting example has been given by the author here. When it comes to something which is purely personal, nobody is going to interfere with the exercise of your personal liberty. The author says, if at all you want to go down to the square somewhere on the roadside, wearing a dressing gown, of course you can go. Nobody will object. If at all you want to have a long hair and you want to walk on the street bare feet, mind it well, these are the purely personal concerns and they are not at all going to affect anybody. So nobody is going to object for this. You may have liberty to laugh at me, but I have liberty to be indifferent to you. See, you can manage your own dressing sense. You can decide your own hairstyle. You can decide the kind of footwear that you want to wear, or else you want to abandon. All these things are purely personal. Nobody is going to object. You have even the liberty to laugh at me. But at the same time, I have liberty to be indifferent to you. And if I have a fancy for dyeing my hair or waxing my mustache, which heaven forbid, or wearing a tall hat, a frock coat and sandals, or going to bed late or getting up early, I shall follow my fancy and ask no man's permission. Yeah, of course. These are all personal things. Suppose you want to dye your hair. It is your preference which color is to be adopted. Do you want to make your hair dark black, or you want to make it gray? You want to make it green or blue? It is your choice. Nobody is going to disturb you. Similarly, you want to wax your mustache. Whether you want to go with a typical style, that is your wish. Nobody is going to disturb you. So if at all you want to use a hat, whether to go for Italian hood or a cricketing cap or any other kind of style of hat that you want to, it is your own choice. Whether to wear a frock coat or a sophisticated, acceptable kind of dressing code, it is again your choice. Whether to use sandals or chappals or slippers or shoes or boots, it is again your choice. Whether to go to bed little late and to get up in the early morning, it is again your choice. In all these cases, which are purely personal, nobody is going to interfere with it. I shall not inquire of you whether I may eat mustard with my mutton. I may like mustard with my mutton. And you will not ask me whether you may be a Protestant or a Catholic, whether you may marry the dark lady or the fair lady, whether you may prefer Elia Wheeler Wilcox to Wordsworth or Champagne to Shandy Gaff. See now, the author has talked about your own personal priorities and preferences. Nobody is going to object with it. While preparing your food, whether you would like to go with some mustard along with your mutton or you want to go without it, your choice. I may like, I may not like. It is my will and wish. Similarly, to have a particular religion or to adopt a particular religion is again my own choice. As you know, different religions have their own sects also. Take it for example, Christianity. You have Protestant and Catholics. Again, within it, you have Baptist, Methodist, and so on and so on. But these are the two major sections or sects in Christianity. Similarly, in Buddhism, you have Yin-Yang and Mahayana. Even among the Jainism, you will find that there is Shwetambar and Digambar. In the Islam, you have Shias and Sunnis. Even among the Hindus, you will find different types of sects. You have Vaishnava Panthas, Shakta Panthas, right? Different sects are there, Gayatri Panthas, and so on and so on. Whether to follow Protestant ideology or to follow Catholic ideology, it is my will and wish. No one can interfere with my religious concerns. If at all I want to get married, whether to marry a dark lady or a fair lady, it's my choice. No one can interfere with that. Similarly, when it comes to my literary preferences, reading particular author, whether to read Elia Wheeler Wilcox or William Wordsworth or William Shakespeare and John Keats So these are all my preferences. No one can interfere with that. Since it is mentioned over here in the text, that's why I'm telling you, when it comes to drinks, whether to go for a champagne or to Shandy Gap or any other brand, that is again the will and wish of an individual. In all these and 1,000 other details, you and I please ourselves and ask no one's leave. See, all these points which are raised by A.G. Gardiner are purely personal. You do not take anybody's permission for that. You do not ask anybody about it. It is your own choice. We have a whole kingdom in which we rule alone, right? We have our own kingdom, the entire kingdom of your personal matter, of your personal concerns, and you yourself rule it. Nobody is going to intervene with that. Can do what we choose, be wise or ridiculous, harsh or easy, conventional or odd. See, these are our preferences. What is to be chosen, what is to be opted, what kind of dressing sense you want to really have for yourself, whether to be wise or ridiculous, whether to be harsh or easy, whether to be conventional, orthodox, or you want to be modern. All these things are your own personal concerns. And that is not going to affect anybody around you. So whenever you talk about it, you just decide yourself because these are your personal issues. But directly, we step out of that kingdom, our personal liberty of action becomes qualified by other people's liberty. But mind, the moment you come out of it, come out of your domain, personal domain, and then you have the concern with others around you, then your personal liberty is not going to be limited to yourself because it has some issues even related to other people. The author says, but directly we step out of that kingdom. That kingdom means personal kingdom. Our personal liberty of action becomes qualified by other people's liberty. The moment you step out of your personal domain and get into the social domain, then you need to be worried. You need to worry about the liberty of others also, because their personal liberty affects your personal liberty. Collectively, it creates a social liberty. I might like to practice on trombone from midnight till 3 in the morning. If I went on to the top of the Helvellyn to do it, I could please myself. But if I do it in my bedroom, my family will object. And if I do it out in the streets and the neighbors will remind me that my liberty to blow the trombone must not interfere with their liberty to sleep in quiet. There are a lot of people in the world, and I have to accommodate my liberty to their liberty. See, the author has given an interesting example. What is that example? Just imagine that you got a fancy and you feel that you want to practice on the trombone, a trumpet, right in the midnight, and you want to continue till 3 o'clock in the morning. Can you really do it? If you want to play any musical instrument with a high frequency in the midnight, do you think that you can do so? The members of your family will first object that you cannot do it right over there in your bedroom. If you think that, okay, I don't want to disturb the members of my family, you will go to the street, the public place, and you start playing your trumpet, practicing a lot right in the midnight. Do you think that you will be able to do it? No. The members of the society means the people will come over there. They will remind you that, okay, Mr. So-and-so, you may have freedom, you may have liberty to blow the trombone in the midnight, but your exercise of your freedom is going to interfere with our liberty to sleep in quiet. So the common good of common all, based on this principle, you cannot blow, you cannot exercise, you cannot practice the trombone right in the midnight, neither at home nor in the street, because others have the natural right to sleep in quiet. But suppose you go to a hilltop, which is an isolated place, and you continue to blow your trumpet throughout the night, nobody is going to object, because your practice on the trombone is not going to disturb them. So there are a lot of people in the world, and I have to accommodate my liberty to their liberty. Mind it well, while exercising one's own liberty, we need to be very careful about the exercise of the same liberty by others as well. Unless I protect their liberty, my liberty will never be protected. So the common good of common all, I should accommodate myself with the people, I should allow other people to get accommodated with me, and altogether I have to accommodate my liberty to their liberties. Then only a social contract, an acceptable social contract will take place. You have your personal domain, then you have a domain of the family, then you have the domain of the society. First of all, look into your own domain. Be careful about the domain of the family. Then you should be conscious of the domain of the society. And while living there in the family, you may be all alone there in your personal room, but you are the integral part of a society. You are the integral part of the family. And then your family is the integral part of the society. So when you want to do something, mind it well, you need to take care of the members of your family. And when you want to do something out of your home or house, you need to be careful about the society and the people in the society. Then only a social order can be established. Nobody will intervene with your own personal domain. So this is how A.G. Gardiner is trying to, present his ideas in this respect. So due to time constraints, I may not be able to proceed further. But of course, in my next class tomorrow, I will try to continue with the leftover part of this lesson. Thank you very much.